the #1 Costa Rica real estate and investment podcast, bringing you experts from all over Costa Rica.
Good afternoon, guys, and welcome to episode 201 of Costa Rica Real Estate and Investments with me, your host, Richard Bexon. Keeping in the routine that we have here with episode 101 and 201, today we have the honor of having Scott Cutter. I think for anyone that's been listening to the podcast for a while will just know his knowledge is wide and also deep. So I love to get him on here. His perspective is very unique and people just love to hear from him. So we're going to be talking to him about the current market in Costa Rica, Manuel Antonio, where he has his brokerage and also where he believes the opportunity lies still coming in the next couple of years here in Costa Rica. Guys, thanks again for all of your support over the last couple of years, I would say, in this podcast. I hope that this has been very helpful for a lot of you. I know it has because a lot of you have mentioned it to me. Anyone that wants to reach out, that's looking to do anything here in Costa Rica, we have tons of data. We have webinars. You can also go to our website, investingcostarica.com, sign up for our newsletter. There's also a curated investment section where we take a look at listings throughout Costa Rica and rate them basically based on kind of an A to E scale, based on a variety of different factors from its location, rentability, distance from beach, etc., and then give it an overall grade. So you can just sign up for that on our website, investingcostarica.com, go to the curated investment section, sign up, and we will basically update you there every single time that we have a new listing kind of that we've analyzed there. Or if you have one that you'd like us to analyze, feel free to email it to us, info@investingcostarica.com. Anyway, let's get straight into the podcast. Good morning, Scott. How you doing?
Morning, Richard. Always a pleasure. Doing great. Blessed to be busy, happy, and healthy, which is the key things that make life good for me down here in Costa Rica.
That's true. It's, we sometimes forget how good that we have it in Costa Rica until you go somewhere else. But yeah, we do have it pretty good down here, buddy. So, well, awesome. Scott, my first question for you. I mean, markets have had a great start to 2024. Real estate worldwide is slowing down kind of a little bit. What are you seeing happening here in Costa Rica real estate?
It's interesting. We get this question every single day from my buyers and my sellers. And the reality is, as a real estate firm and a brokerage firm, we're having a great year. There's a great volume. I think Costa Rica's brand internationally is stronger than it's ever been. And ironically, the worse things get around the world, I think the stronger the Costa Rica brand is. People want the Kool-Aid that we're selling here, which is a great lifestyle, happiness, peacefulness, nature. And the Costa Rican brand, I think, is as strong as it's ever been globally. And that translates to real estate transactions. It translates to a great time here. There's just a lot of people that want this. Now, I certainly think that we're not immune to the slowdown in the U.S. real estate markets, higher interest rates, more expensive capital, and that's affected everything here. And so we've seen in most of our markets, not all, but in most of the coastal markets in Costa Rica, and I think you've probably seen this on all your podcasts and your experience, is you've seen some price settling in most marketplaces. There's anomalies in some of the really boutique luxury 5-star and highest end of the market, but in most markets, you've seen some price settling. And I say settling instead of price drops because I don't think the market's retreating. I think that, coming out of COVID, we were on there was so much pent-up demand and Costa Rica had such little supply. You saw a lot of prices go skyrocketing, probably beyond where the market actually was. And there was a lot of speculative, maybe I'd sell, maybe I could get this. And we're just retreating back to that, but it's not a fire sale market. You don't see prices dropping dramatically. We just see people settling from, me telling them that their house was worth $1.2 million, them saying, let's see if we can get $1.8 million, and they're coming down now to $1.4 million, $1.5 million, and the market's absorbing people that come into the marketplace.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there is definitely a settling in the market and a return to kind of reality. It got a lot, I would say, overheated there. It was kind of overticking a little bit. And
sure.
Yeah, now it's kind of cooling down a bit. But I mean, there are some markets that I'm seeing that are, that are still going from strength to strength. I mean, what are you seeing? What markets have you seen where you're just like, this thing I can't believe it just keeps getting stronger and stronger?
Well, I mean, I think where we're seeing the most growth in Costa Rica is in the highest end luxury market. So Costa Rica, is a country that we've been here. I've been here for 29 years. You've been here for decades as well. Our luxury market 750 to $1.5 million. That was the top end of our real estate market for 25 years.
Yep.
And luxury here by definition was still an infant in the global scope of things. So what's strength to strength? I think the highest end marketplace. And when you look at some of the premier developments around Costa Rica and some of the new developments that are taking place in Reserva Conchal and Papagayo, where they're very much on the forefront of attracting the top end wealth. Those guys are doing amazingly well, and they're staying strong. And I think Costa Rica, the reason they're going from strength to strength, as you say, is Costa Rica is attracting more high dollar wealth than at any point in its history. And Costa Rica, in that luxury, true global luxury market, Costa Rica is still very much a value proposition. Is Costa Rica a cheap place to buy real estate still? No. The days of coming down and buying a piece of beachfront land or something magical for 50 or 100 grand are gone. And there are certainly some old timers and people that will write out there about, oh, Costa Rica's been there, done that, it's already expensive. I just disagree with that.
I agree.
I think when you look at high-end luxury markets and trends globally, in the luxury market, Costa Rica is still very much a value proposition. And there are areas where you can still get really good deals in Costa Rica, but where's strength to strength? I think the highest ends of the market are strength to strength, and there's still multiple layers of growth. And the most sophisticated real estate investors now look at Costa Rica as a low risk proposition that's still very much at its teenage years of maturation. And they look at what a lot of people locally will go, that's crazy. Can you believe that house is worth $3 million? Can you believe they sold that at $5 million? And the savviest real estate investors from around the globe are going, can you believe we just acquired that for $5 million? Because they understand where the markets can go.
Yeah. Well, but also is because of the demand for rentals as well, high-end rentals, the cash flow is also there to back those numbers up. It's not that you're making like a punt here where like I might lose it or not. Like I can on the high-end homes, they can make 10% a year, like the really high-end homes.
They can, and the reality is in some of those players in that game where they understand they're looking at legacy investment, their portfolio investments, they're about relocating wealth from the stock market, from U.S. assets, from bank accounts that are doing nothing because of what's happening with the U.S. interest rates, and they're moving into places where even if they can get 4 or 5 or 6% returns, they're going, look, if I'm getting a CD-like return with a secure investment and property that's gonna appreciate if I have a longer than a 12-month mental cycle on my real estate appreciation, and I can go and sleep there and use it for business and use it for family and use it for memories, etc. Combining all of those things into one asset, which also makes them feel good, is a very easy justification purchase for anybody in that high net worth market. We're seeing more family. I know you see it in your consulting work. There's more family offices looking at Costa Rica, looking at multiple purchases, looking at wealth diversification here. So, strength to strength is that. There's certainly some markets as well that I think are unique marketplaces. Manuel Antonio, where I live and work, is certainly a strength to strength market. And it's got supply and demand dynamic that very few places in the world have that allow it to retain that stronghold even in slower real estate trends.
I agree with you on Manuel Antonio. I mean, that's where I'm investing, where my fund is investing. Like, I believe in Manuel Antonio. I think it's going to have a renaissance, Scott. I really do. And it's where I'm going to be focused over the next coming years. And where my investors who are behind me are as well, just because like even the tourism, I just look at tourism numbers and it just says Manuel Antonio, Manuel Antonio, Manuel Antonio. I've said it before with Arenal, just Arenal really is in that infancy stage, if that makes sense. But the hotels in Arenal do just as well as Manuel Antonio are getting. I mean, you've been to Nayara. Its average daily rate is higher, I think, than anything in Manuel Antonio.
It's the highest ADR, I think, anywhere in Costa Rica, and probably the highest occupancy rate as well.
Yep. And that's in Arenal. So, I mean, I agree on the Manuel Antonio. There's a lot of, my thing is there's a lot of older homes that need to be either completely remodeled or knocked down and rebuilt, if that makes sense.
100%.
It's just the numbers sometimes don't always make sense from like you're paying a premium, if that makes sense, for a house that really is not that great. I mean,
well, we're in that transition phase where, and that's where I think opportunity lies. I've sold 2 7-figure homes this year that are total gut and remodels.
Yep.
And the people buying them have been told by everybody locally that they are batshit crazy, excuse my language on your podcast. And they're both people that go, this has a grade view, has a larger lot than anything in the area. And I don't care that I'm the crazy guy for 24 to 36 or 60 months. I know that in the 10-year cycle or 20-year cycle of this destination, there's no park that's more beautiful. They love the fact there's a marina here. They know that there won't be 6,000 condos here. We can't have that kind of corporate growth. And it means that it doesn't happen as fast as some areas like in Guanacaste, but they understand that that supply and demand dynamic protects them. And so they're buying those older homes. They're young and they're new and they're trailblazing in that. I think we're going to see more and more of that over time. And one of the two things is going to happen. Either older homes and sellers who wouldn't give the value that the market needs to see them move are going to lower their prices because of life and time and et cetera. Or the market's going to continue to evolve and people are going to go, I'll have the third one of these 7-figure home buyers that just understands that it's just like, it's like opening a business. I had a guy who was opening a business. He said, Scott, I don't expect to make money for 3 to 5 years. It's just when you start a business, you don't think that you're going to open your doors and get rich. And we're going to start to see more and more investors with that vision and that wherewithal and that financial capability of going, I know this takes time like a good wine to mature, but I know the fundamentals are here. And again, it always comes back to me, Richard. I know that's why you're doing it here, both in the tourism and your history in tourism and in real estate. Nobody can ever outsmart supply and demand.
Correct. I mean, that's it. You can't. And I mean,
that's simple. Everybody, where's the next Manuel Antonio? There isn't another Manuel Antonio. There are other beautiful areas, but there's nowhere that has a 7-kilometer stretch of coast, the road dead ends, the most visited or one of the most visited national parks in Costa Rica, a marina, a small airport, proximity to San Jose. There isn't a next Manuel Antonio. There's going to be a new destinations that pop up around Costa Rica, but this place, and that's why I invest here, it's why my clients do well here, it has certain dynamics that can never change and can't be replicated.
Yeah. There's a saying, the pioneers take the arrows, the settlers get the gold. You know, I mean, the pioneers have already been through Manuel Antonio, so become one of the settlers. You know,
that's why I settled here.
Yeah, I think smart. You know, I never really understood. I mean, I always knew Manuel Antonio was a great destination, but until I started looking at the metrics and the demand and supply, as you said there, I was like, wow. You know, there are other areas in Costa Rica, yes, you can invest, but as you said there, the #1 national park in the country, but its hotel occupancy is like 70% plus. Its vacation rentals are you don't see that anywhere else.
Yeah, and again, I have friends that are hotel owners. The quality hotel that you get here and what you pay here is mind-boggling. And again, I have many big hotel investors that want to come here. The issue is the hotel owners don't want to sell. They've got incredibly strong performing assets and they do upgrades here and there. But even with maybe 10-year-old installations that haven't evolved with some of the premier hotels. You know, when you look at what a Nayara is getting in Arenal, if we had a Nayara here in Manuel Antonio, it'd be $2,000 a night.
Yeah.
Well, you know, but it's just, it speaks to the fact that people want to come and they're willing to pay a premium and they're willing to I don't want to say accept subpar because the hotels are nice and there's certainly some beautiful hotels here, but I'd say probably 75% of our luxury hotel market here is older and is older and somewhat dated. I think it's why places like Tulimar, like places like Los Altos that have brought newer condos and luxury villas to the market are doing so incredibly well. And can charge incredible prices and run high occupancies because people want to be here and they're looking for any way to share it.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to ask you a question here that the answer can't be Manuel Antonio. I mean, if you were to make a 5-year punt, Scott, where would you invest in Costa Rica? Because I'm sure you get this a lot.
You know, we do. And I am very bullish on the southern zone of Costa Rica. I think that there's 2 main areas where what I'd look and the southern zone is an area for a 5-year punt where I'm just I think where most of the natural beauty that Costa Rica exports. If I went to Europe or the United States and said, describe Costa Rica to me, I think the description of 95% of the respondents would be what exists in the Manuel Antonio area south.
Yep.
Lush rainforest, big waterfalls, all the wildlife, pristine uninhabited beaches, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think having those core access and amenity elements, or just like core components that fulfill what people's visions are, that's always going to continue to grow. Now it's going to be slow, and that might be a 10-year punt. But in general, I'm a big believer that the southern zone of Costa Rica is going to be where, when we look, 50 years from now, 20 years now, we're going to look and say all of the growing pains, all of the mistakes, all of the stumbling blocks that it went through are going to be applied in the most beautiful place in the world in a better fashion in the southern zone. I think the other area I would look at is, for a 5-year punt, is in Guanacaste. There are areas where there's new developments that have taken years to start to mature that are just now coming into a full blossom. You look at a place like Hacienda Pinilla that's an older development. Hacienda Pinilla has been there for 15, 20 years, and there were lots, and it was trickling along, and they built the JW Marriott, but that's a destination in the Avellanas area south of Tamarindo. Tamarindo's is amazing, but it's dense already. And you look at a place like Avellanas and Hacienda Pinilla, that I think the next 5 years there are going to be an explosion, because they have the space, they have the proximity to Liberia, they have the infrastructure and world-class amenities, but they haven't quite taken that next tick up. And when you compare it to Discovery or Papagayo or even some other places, the values there are still much more affordable. And so those are two areas where I think there's going to be a lot of growth outside of Manuel Antonio.
I agree. I mean, I had a client the other day who, we helped. They were 20 years ago. He was like, I wish I would have bought in Langosta. He's like, but I'm buying in Avellanas because I see it as Langosta, 20 years ago. And I mean, you've got that Ave Moana, Namundi that's going in there. You've got Hacienda Pinilla. I mean, it's developing rapidly. And it's still very naturally beautiful, that area as well.
Exactly.
So I agree. When you say the southern zone, I mean, are you talking like Portalón, or do you think it's like Uvita or Hachao, or you think even further south into the Osa Peninsula?
Well, no, I think that when you go further south, Osa Peninsula, that's not a 5-year punt. That's a 10-year punt. That's a 15-year punt. I mean, we can't ignore, Guanacaste is amazing and it's beautiful, but one of the major drivers there, it's just easy to get to. And you can't assume, and that's probably a very frequent real estate mistake. People overestimate the average investor and tourist willingness to go an extra 30 minutes, hour and a half, 2 hours. So I think that while the Osa in that area is stunning, I think that until there's an international airport in the southern zone, you won't see that area flower the way it should. Now that's going to happen. The country understands, and already you're seeing at the government level the first steps towards that. But if I'm investing in Osa or Jimenez or in the deep south, I'm talking about a legacy investment for my kids. It's a 20 to 25-year plan, not a 5-year plan. I think the 5-year plan is more related to the area really from Dominical to Ojochal. And I know that's a big stretch of coastline, and they're all very unique. But for the next 5 years, the reality is I don't see a huge difference in buyers going, oh, that's a little... You're already making a commitment to go down. That's, a 3-hour drive from the international airport, or a 45-minute drive from the local airport in Petzvela, or coming north from Palmar Sur. And I think that whole coast is really about, nuances, but I think there's a lot of potential down there. There's a lot of land there. There's a lot of real estate there. So the rental market's going to be it's going to be slower to grow, but I think there's a lot of land appreciation there as infrastructure grows, as Uvita becomes a real almost like a city center that becomes an anchor that allows Ojochal South and Dominical North to grow. And there's restaurants, and there's a great food scene, and there's supermarkets and stuff. I'm careful about rental potential there, but I think in terms of value real estate acquisition, and that's an important point that you talk about, I do all the time. Why are you buying? If you're buying to rent, get a 1-bedroom studio in New York. It's still better than a 45-bedroom house in Omaha. And the same thing's true. If you're buying to rent, buy in Manuel Antonio. Buy in the place where you're going to get less for your money. That supply and demand works for you as an owner. If you're buying to own, if you're buying for use, if you're buying for legacy, and you want to have some sustainable rentals, then I think some of those outlying areas like the Dominical area offer some really great value acquisitions where you're going to get more real estate for your money, but you got to know that you're probably not going to run anywhere near the kind of lucrative rental that you could run in an anchor place like Manuel Antonio.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, still Dominical does very, very well on rental fronts. I mean, not, it's Manuel Antonio is a lot better for sure. But I mean, you're not losing any money probably if you make an investment.
Oh,
No,
you can make money. And
Correct.
I've got friends that have highly successful, highly lucrative rentals there.
Yep.
But they work a little bit hard. So that's one of the things I tell my is don't think that you can't make great money in Dominical and Uvita with a rental. You can make fantastic money. What I tell people is if in Manuel Antonio you can make great money, but I got a guy I sold a $4.5 million house to.
Yep.
Never been to the house. He never met the property manager. He's probably going to make a 9% return in his first year.
Yep.
And he's just going to get checks sent. It's totally passive. The machine is that strong.
Yep.
If you're going to go south, usually the people that are doing the most successful rentals either have some kind of really unique or iconic property, or they're more aggressive and integrated into their self-promotion, using their business networks to get that occupancy, just because there's more homes, and there's going to be more homes because there's more growth. So it's not as easy to make that much money passively. You can be sustainable passively there if you want to be highly lucrative in those more remote markets, and that's south or north. You just need to be more proactive as an owner.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, looking at Manuel Antonio, I mean, what are some of the, and I always like to ask, because a lot of people are actually looking to make Costa Rica home now. It's a little bit different than before where people were, having vacation rentals. People are seriously looking at Costa Rica as like, I'm going to live there. I mean, what are some of the services or businesses that you think are missing in Manuel Antonio?
You're asking me to give away the business model. I got 2 or 3 that I wrote yesterday because as I travel and I go to other places, I'm like, that would be a killer operation here. This will be a great opportunity here. There's always opportunities in creative experience ecotourism stuff. So I have friends of mine that started Paddle 9, years ago doing customized private waterfall tours. They have a huge, robust, one of the best businesses going in Manuel Antonio. One of my agents, Stopper Huckle, has a vacation buggy tour. He has 2 modified Jeeps. They take people out in these modified 4-wheel drive Jeeps out into the rainforest, wildly successful trips. So as we get more big, I don't want to say institutional, but bigger tourism operators where you're in a bus going to do the event, anything that offers boutique, customized, personalized experiences, whether they're food related, I think that there's huge growth potential in the agricultural, rural coffee tourism. We are, the Manuel Antonio area is an hour and a half from some of the most amazing coffee country in the world. As infrastructure, it's been a bad road, and so it's not there yet. But as infrastructure improves and allows us to be an hour drive up to high elevation, best coffee in the world, there's going to be huge opportunities for people to get clients out of. It's not an overpopulated Manuel Antonio, but as Manuel Antonio develops, it gets denser, it gets busier, it becomes to where you're always around tourists, and so people long for those. Get me in my home base here, but get me out into authentic, real Costa Rica. And that's one of the cool things about Manuel Antonio is in any direction, you can drive 10 minutes and you're out in the jungle or you're out in the middle of nowhere. And so I think any personalized tours that offer that. I also think that we're going to see a rebirth of our, gastronomic opportunity here. We went through a place where Manuel Antonio was awesome because there was all this kind of great food. And then with so much tourism coming in, a lot of food can get plain Jane, where you go to restaurants and they're always full because of the same supply and dynamic, but you're all getting the same fish fillet with garlic sauce and the same sauteed vegetables and the same cup of white rice and black beans. And it's cute and gringos love it because it's so different. But we're starting to now see people, tourists and people going, wait a minute, I'm craving something more authentic. I'm craving a higher food experience. Some of the destinations that are further away, Santa Teresa, Ojochal, Dominical, got well known because people that were doing food there were so passionate because they didn't have the volume of clients. So it had to be a passion project. We're starting now to see opportunities here with people bringing back where clients are willing to pay. Again, we talked about that upper end, higher dollar market traveler and investor coming. Those people are also willing to pay for experiences. So if to do high-end cuisine or unique experience, people have to pay more. There's now clients that will pay more.
Yep.
And so I think there's a lot of opportunities in, just like we talked about in real estate, the newer homes, the renovation, things done at a higher caliber. We need new construction. I think the same thing's true in food, in tourism, and all the services. It's just going to go from that immature first generation service and food market to everything up on steroids at a higher level.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cycle that we see kind of play out in multiple destinations. And Manuel Antonio has been through that cycle once, and now the newer homes are coming in, and it's going to go through that cycle again, So
all over the world. I'm taking my daughter to a robust family reunion up in Florida, and we're going to a beach destination there. And I was like, I want to do a beach bonfire for it.
Yep.
And I went online because I would just go get firewood and do it. And that's what we do. And in a 10-mile stretch of beach, there's 15 companies that offer cushions on the beach and tiki torches, and it's $25 for the cornhole game and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, I'm definitely going to do that. That saves me all the headache, all the permits are there. Those kinds of things, they don't exist here.
Correct.
And you start to think about that. If you and your, like, if a travel company could start to say, we can offer you for $350, you and 10 of your friends, a beach bonfire with cornhole and a beer cooler. You can sell that to every third tourist all day long. And there's 100 ideas like that you couldn't do before, when our average tourist person was paying $100 a night and looking to do a $25 tour.
Yeah.
But as we evolve, all those more polished, curated experiences are going to be in high demand.
I mean, the tourists coming to Costa Rica has certainly changed, that's for sure. And as you said, and I completely agree, we are just getting started, guys. Like, when you compare it to other destinations, like go to Hawaii and then look at Costa Rica. I mean, we're so behind, if that makes sense, behind them.
Sure.
But it's the beauty of Costa Rica is it's been an organic growth, if that makes sense.
Well, you don't have to, and a lot of these curated experience developments, you don't have to be a $1 billion guy or a $20 million person to get in the game here.
Correct.
This is a place where there are investment opportunities in remodels and long-term plays and rental properties for virtually every level of investor. Yep. And I think the key is you have to be grounded, and you can't think you're going to come to Costa Rica and you're going to be the first person to look. You're not. And that doesn't mean it's a bad place to invest. I think it just means that you're no longer at a craps table. And trust me, the people that came here 25 and 30 years ago, yes, they were buying for pennies on the dollar. And yes, you will get sick to your stomach when you hear that guy bought that property for $30,000 and it's worth 30 million today. But that guy was when he put down 30 grand, he was crazy. And everyone told him, you're an absolute lunatic to be doing that. And the reality is, in most cases, for 20 years, they were lunatics.
Yeah.
And then time paid them back. But it's a much safer place. There's so much more information for people out there now. And there's great guides to make sure they're not making mistakes. So just don't, I just encourage people, do your homework. If someone's selling you something that's too good to be true, it is.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, I said, one of my questions here was like, what should people be wary of in Costa Rica? And I think you just said it there, which is when it sounds too good to be true, it very much 99% of the time in Costa Rica is.
It's a real market. So if you're coming for 100% returns and you meet a fast talking realtor or a cab driver or a waiter that says he's got something that's so magical you can't believe it's true, ask yourself, why hasn't Scott and Richard bought it already? We've been here for 29 years. We're canvassing the market up and down. It doesn't happen. There are great opportunities here. You can make great money here. You can live a great lifestyle here. And you could have investment properties that I think add quality to your life, to your family life, to other things. And they're lucrative. But don't get fast talked. And I will tell you what else. Vet the people you're working with. As Costa Rica grows and as opportunities do grow, there's more and more and more newcomers and that are getting into the game that don't have the experience. And I had a friend of mine post something that was really smart that which is, being here a long time doesn't make you smart.
Correct.
So balance experience with vetting people, asking for their references, checking into who you're working with. I mean, I got people that are here for 25 years and they've been here for so long, they're blind to the reality and they're cynical. So, if somebody starts by saying, I've been doing it for 30 years, well, maybe you're stubborn.
Yeah.
It helps, but you want to make sure you combine not working with a newbie that doesn't understand anything about Costa Rica and that's just selling you hype and the fact that it's great. You saw 3 monkeys and the sunset was beautiful. Slow yourself down. I do that with most of my clients. And usually if you're working with a good guide, they'll slow you down before they accelerate your process. And that's a good thing.
I agree, man. I mean, yeah. And they'll usually be probably pretty direct with you as well. You know, they're very candid and very direct with you.
There's negatives. Manuel Antonio has a host of negatives. And
Correct.
we start with those. If they're non-starters, good. Let's just save time and go have a beer.
That's it. Yeah.
But because Costa Rica is not perfect. It's just perfect for me. And our goal, your goal is to help educate people so they can find the right place and the right strategies for them.
I agree. Well, Scott, I've kept you long enough. My last question for you, sir. If you inherited $500,000 and had to invest it in business or real estate in Costa Rica, what would you invest it in, sir?
I would invest in the marina here in Manuel Antonio and in Marina Pez Vela. We are doing some new condominium and villa development right now. I'm a believer more than ever. And we talk about recession-proof wealth. We talk about areas and marketplaces that never retreat. And more people are getting into boating, the fishing here. It is the purest of supply and demand, maybe anywhere globally. When you look at, there's just not many of these kind of marinas. So if you got an extra $500,000, $1 million sitting around, give me a call and I'll help introduce you to what we got to offer here at Marina Pez Vela.
Awesome. Well, Scott, appreciate your time. I'll put all of your contact details down in the description. But thanks very much for joining us on this new season of the podcast.
Sounds good. Take care.
Right. Have a good one. Bye. Always great to get Scott on the podcast and get his insight. I mean, you know, it's just a very unique insight he has, as he has, you know, offices all over Costa Rica. And they're just it's a really good company to Costa Rica Real Estate. I mean, you know, as he said, he's been here 29 years. I think he's been doing this for 20 years. And I always say extraordinary things are done by ordinary people doing ordinary tasks over an extraordinarily long period of time. So he's definitely been doing that. He has an extraordinary business. He's an extraordinary individual. And I'm always blessed to have him here on the podcast and just to share his information, his perspective with you. You know, we focused a lot on Manuel Antonio, but there are so many other destinations in Costa Rica that are very similar to Manuel Antonio, where it will, and it does make a good, you know, story for investment, and the data is there to back that up as well. So yeah, and I still think there is tons of opportunity and runway here in Costa Rica. We're seeing some markets that he'd mentioned there, they're overheated, but I think over the next coming years, you know, there's going to be a lot of opportunity, or even more opportunity here in Costa Rica, and especially as it matures. And the conversations I'm having are with just very different people than I were having 5 years ago and 10 years ago. You know, it's a different type of investor and clientele coming to Costa Rica. And I think we're only just getting started, especially if you compare it to areas in Europe and also Hawaii. You know, and it's a safe investment, Costa Rica. And it's one of those investments that I would say that you actually get to use and enjoy as well. So it's a lifestyle investment. But anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. If we can help with anything in Costa Rica, or you just want to chat with us, there is a link below for a free 15-minute consultation. You can speak to one of the guys in the office or myself. You can also email us info@investingcostarica.com. That's info@investingcostarica.com. If you've enjoyed the podcast, guys, please give us a thumbs up, 5 stars, or just write a little comment. We'd love to hear from you. But until the next podcast, guys, welcome to the I would say season 200, and I'm sure we'll be at episode 300 before we know it. Thanks very much. Bye.
The #1 Costa Rica real estate and investment podcast, bringing you experts from all over Costa Rica.